The spotlight searched for him, but he was already gone. Albert Finney was the kind of actor Hollywood was built to worship. Magnetic, fearless, impossible to forget. After Tom Jones made him a household name, the industry opened its gates wide. Studios wanted him, the world wanted him, but Finney wanted none of it. He declined roles that could have made him immortal Bond, Gandalf, icons most actors would kill for. He never chased awards, never hired a manager, and when the Oscars called his name, he never appeared. In a world addicted to attention, he became the rarest thing of all, unseen. Years later, after his quiet passing, letters would emerge revealing the philosophy of a man who had everything, and yet found peace only in walking away. Albert Finney was born in Salford, England. In 1936, the son of a bookmaker who dreamed small in a town that seldom dreamed at all. But Finney's world was larger, restless, burning with something that didn't fit the narrow streets of his childhood. At the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, he learned to command silence, the kind of silence that made people listen. His raw presence, unpolished and real, helped redefine what it meant to be a leading man in British cinema. Saturday Night and Sunday Morning made him the voice of a new generation. Tom Jones turned that voice into a roar, a film so wild and alive it made him a global sensation. Hollywood came running with contracts, promises, and crowns. But where others saw destiny, Finney saw a trap. "I act," he once said, "but I don't want to belong to anyone." As the world tried to celebrate him, he quietly stepped back. And in that quiet, a different kind of legend was born. He didn't come from privilege, nor did he need glamour to be seen. Albert Finney's beginnings were as plain as the brick walls of Salford where he grew up, a boy who understood grit, who carried the rhythm of factory life in his bones. That honesty became the soul of his art. At RADA, his tutors saw something untamed, an actor who refused to mimic others, who performed as if truth itself were breaking through his skin. He wasn't smooth or polished, he was real. And when he brought that rawness to Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, British cinema shifted. He wasn't just playing Arthur Seaton, he was every frustrated young man who felt trapped by class and circumstance. Then came Tom Jones, a storm of laughter, scandal, and charm that catapulted Finney into global fame. The Oscars beckoned, magazine covers flashed his smile, and directors from across the Atlantic called his name. But even at the height of his rise, Finney's heart was elsewhere. "I don't want fame to decide who I am," he said once. The world saw a star ascending. He saw a man standing dangerously close to losing himself. Fame arrived like a storm, and Albert Finney met it with a closed door. By the late 1960 seconds, his name was currency in the film world. He had everything, the looks, the talent, the acclaim. Yet every time the industry tried to celebrate him, he pulled further away. He turned down the suits, the stylists, the carefully planned image. No press agents, no red carpets, no Hollywood mansions. He never appeared at the Oscars, even when his seat had his name on it. "Why should I go?" he told a friend. "My job ends when the camera stops." When producers offered him James Bond, he refused. When directors pleaded with him to move to Los Angeles, he declined again. He didn't want to be owned by the machine that devoured the people it adored. But fame doesn't take rejection kindly. The press called him difficult. Some said he was arrogant. Others whispered that he was hiding something. Yet behind that silence, Finney was protecting the only thing that mattered: his freedom to live without performance. The more the world tried to celebrate him, the more he vanished into himself, quietly proving that not every spotlight deserves to be followed. For Albert Finney, the decline wasn't dramatic, it was deliberate. As others fought to stay relevant, he drifted into stillness, working only when a story demanded truth. Murder on the Orient Express brought him another Oscar nomination. The Dresser earned him praise for exposing the fragile heart of an aging actor. And then, like mist after dawn, he disappeared again. He never chased the spotlight, in fact. He learned to live outside of it. Reporters could never find him. He gave no interviews, made no confessions. What he offered instead was mystery, a man who had walked away from everything and seemed perfectly content in the quiet. But the silence had a cost. As years passed, fewer people saw him. The industry he had once defied moved on without him. His health began to fade, and true to form, he spoke of it to no one. There were no statements, no updates, only the absence of a voice once so vivid. Still, that absence spoke volumes. While others aged in the spotlight, Finney aged in peace. He had built a life away from applause, and though the world forgot, he didn't mind. Because for him, Being unseen was never a loss. It was freedom. When news of Albert Finney's death broke in 2019, it came softly as if whispered by time itself. There were no press conferences, no staged tributes, no dramatic farewells. Just a simple headline: Albert Finney dies at 82. And for a man who had spent his life evading spectacle, it felt exactly right. He had spent his final years quietly in London with his wife, Penne Delmage, living the same way he had worked with honesty and restraint. Those who knew him spoke of his warmth, his humor, and his refusal to take himself too seriously. His illness, hidden from the public, was part of his final act of privacy, an artist's last defense against the noise of the world. When the film industry finally realized he was gone, tributes poured in from those he had touched: Daniel Day-Lewis, Julia Roberts, directors who had once begged him for just one more performance. They all said the same thing: he was real. No curtain call, no last interview, only the echo of a man who lived exactly as he wished. Albert Finney didn't fade away. He simply stepped off the stage, leaving the lights behind. Long after Albert Finney's voice went silent, his work still hums with life, raw, fearless, unfiltered. His performances were never about perfection. They were about truth. In every role, he carried a piece of real humanity, and when the cameras stopped, he let that truth return to silence. Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, Tom Jones, The Dresser, Erin Brockovich, each film became a chapter in the story of a man who refused to let fame define him. Younger actors like Daniel Day-Lewis, Gary Oldman, and Tom Hardy would later cite him as their compass proof that an actor could remain pure in a business built on illusion. Finney left no memoirs, no autobiographies, no final messages. Only the films honest, breathing, eternal. In a world obsessed with being seen, he showed that disappearing could be its own form of greatness. He may have walked away from the lights, but the shadow he left still glows. Albert Finney's life was a contradiction, a star who refused to shine on command. He stood before the blinding power of Hollywood and simply said, no. Where others chased immortality through fame, he discovered it through absence. His light was in his craft, honest, grounded, and human. His shadow was his silence, deliberate, profound, and pure. Together, they made him something few ever become: untouchable. He taught the world that success is not measured by visibility, but by integrity. That walking away can sometimes be the most powerful act of all. And though he chose to vanish, Albert Finney never truly disappeared. The man who left the spotlight behind became part of something far brighter, the timeless truth that art, once honest, never dies. When you think of Albert Finney, what do you remember? The rebel who refused Hollywood, or the artist who disappeared into his craft? If you could speak to him now, what would you ask? Why he walked away, or how he found peace in doing so? Share your thoughts below. Tell us which of his performances still lingers with you, which truth still speaks through his silence. And if this story made you see fame a little differently, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Because here, on Fame and Shadows, every legend has its silence, and every silence has its story.